Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 982B, and today's date is May 27th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Daytime Military Drills in Tampa Used to Condition the American People. Now, before I get started, I just want to make two announcements. The first one is that I put a new interview on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. It is James Perloff, so if you go over to the YouTube channel X22 Report Spotlight, you can see the video there, or you can come over to the x22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side, you can view the video there, or go to newssentinel.com, same thing, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side, and you can view the video there. Now, I just want to thank everyone that has been listening to me. I know the YouTube channel has hit 100,000 people, and I am very grateful. I am very appreciative of everyone listening to the X22 Report. I started this, and I remember when I had 5 people. And this channel was started to look at the economic news, look at the political news, look at the geopolitical news, and take all of this and put the pieces together to figure out what was going on, because we know the corporate media, we know the U.S. government, they lie to us, and we know that they leave a lot of information out, and they never back any of their information up. And I wanted to look at all the indicators, create this picture of what was going on so we can make sense of it. It wasn't being used to predict anything. It's not being used to look into the future. It's being used to look at what our government is actually doing, what's really happening in the economy. This was the whole purpose, and still is the purpose, of X22. And I am very grateful and very appreciative of everyone listening. I actually didn't think it was possible that anyone would actually listen to me at all. So for all those people that have been following, all those people that have been listening, even the people that don't like what I say, even the people that give me dislikes, you're still coming to the channel, and you're still adding something where it makes people think. Now, I'm not telling everyone to believe every single word I say. I do research, I do look at different information, and everyone should do the same, and everyone should question everything our government is doing. Our founding fathers, when they created this entire system, that's what they wanted the press to do. Question the government. Keep them in check. And this is what it is all about. And if there is someone who's commenting or someone who dislikes, that is actually good, because it makes people say, well, wait a minute. Is Dave telling us something that's not right? Or is it this person? And then when they delve into it, they say, okay, I made the decision for myself. Now I know what the answer is. It makes people think. And when people think, people question. And when people question, the truth eventually emerges, and we finally have what is really going on. And I just like to say, I am honored to have all of you listen to me. Once again, really, thank you very much for following me and putting up with me. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we talk a lot about the U.S. government, not just the U.S. government, other governments around the world spying on the people. I mean, this is what they're most afraid of. They're afraid of the people. They're afraid of the people rising up. They're afraid of the people of removing them from their post. And we are a threat to them. And this is why the government is using terrorism. This is why they're saying that we need to spy on everyone. This is why they're violating all our rights. But what's happening is, it seems that these agencies are pushing so hard, and they're trying to convince the court systems, they're trying to convince Congress that we need to spy on the people. And it's not that we need to anymore, it's that we have to. And right now, the FBI, they may be granted powers to snoop on everyone's email without a warrant, allowing them to demand a person's email data and web browsing history from service providers. Now, again, I've said this many times. We need to protect ourselves. There are many different ways you can do this. I would join up with an encrypted email service, or if you're going to send messages, you can use encryption on your own. There is a free encryption on my site on the right-hand side, where you can take the data, encrypt it, send the other person the key, and they can have the key. You should also make sure that you're blocking your signal on your phone. You can use like a product like Block It Pocket. You can get it at blockitpocket.com. It's a sleeve that you can slide your phone into. It's interwoven with metals, which blocks the signal. You can also get them for your credit cards and things like that, because we know a lot of these cards have chips in them, and people walking by with scanners can just retake your information. But whatever way you do it, we need to take responsibility, and we need to say to the government, listen, you can't have my information. And I'm going to use encryption, and I know it's not foolproof, nothing is. But listen, do you lock up your valuables in a safe? Do you lock your house when you leave it? Do you lock your car when you're parked in a parking lot? Of course you do. Can someone still break in? Yes. But you're showing people, you're showing whoever's trying to do it, that no, I'm putting up a barrier. Now, some barriers are better than others, but you're still doing it, and it's the same thing with our electronic data. There should be no difference whatsoever. Now, there is a secret provision included in the Senate's annual intelligence authorization, which will expand the FBI's authority. Now, the FBI, they can get certain types of information using national security letters. They can get your name, you can get your address, they can get your call data associated with the phone number, they can get details about your bank account. And since 2008, Justice Department legal opinion, the FBI has been allowed to use these NSLs to demand electronic communication transactional records. Well, the spy bill passed the Senate Intelligence Committee on Tuesday with this provision in it. And one of the bill's provisions would allow the FBI to demand email records without a court order. Now, this is a major expansion of the federal surveillance powers. Now, it's unclear how exactly this provision was added, and we see right now that all of these agencies, the government, the courts, they don't really care if they violate your rights. And if we look at the Fourth Amendment, this is a violation of our rights, period. Now, we realize that Obama, since he started, he continually tells everyone that he has the most transparent administration, and we really know he does not. But something very strange happened at the Office of Government Ethics, and this government office reports on different things, and it's the primary tool that the watchdog journalists, political activists, interested voters can use to guard against presidential appointees using their positions to enrich themselves or others. For years, the OGE website featured a sortable, searchable list of about 1,000 government appointees, including their names, agencies, titles, and had all the information about them. And by clicking on a name, users could easily access multiple disclosures for the appointee, including yearly financial accounting, stock ownership, and a letter detailing any agreements surrounding conflicts, such as issues when the individual promises to recuse himself. But what we come to learn is that the list was completely removed, and all they put up there was a search box, which really isn't the same thing. Now, why did they do this? Well, they don't want you to learn about certain information. They don't want the watchdogs searching their information. They don't want to make it easy for anyone to find this information. And as we can see, the Obama administration is not as transparent as he continually tells everyone. Now, out in North Korea and South Korea, South Korea's Navy on Friday, they fired warning shots to chase away 2 North Korean ships. One was a fishing ship, and the other one was some type of military vessel, as they say. Now, of course, the source wants to remain anonymous. South Korea fired their shots, hoping that North Korea would fire back and something would be started. And we can see right now they're using this to provoke North Korea over and over. Remember what that former general said, where North Korea is coming to its end here, where they're going to have a financial collapse, they might have a regime change, and we need to keep that in the back of our minds as we see the U.S., And all the private Western Central Bank countries continually provoke North Korea. Now, out in Ukraine, we see Poroshenko. He has sanctioned 17 Russian leaders, including the editor-in-chief of RT. And the sanctions include special economic and other restrictive measures against individuals who pose a real and potential threat to the national interest of Ukraine. And this will be enforced until December 31st, 2017. Poroshenko also appointed ex-NATO chief Rasmussen as advisor to Poroshenko. Very interesting. Now, Ukrainian forces, they have attempted to advance on the Donetsk area. They tried to break through the positions, and the attack was made by the 58th Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. So we can see nothing has gone away in Ukraine. Their mission is still to get the southeastern area and Crimea, and the battle is still raging there. We see Russia right now is extending the food bans on all the European nations until 2017 because they once again placed sanctions on Russia or extended the sanctions on Russia. We see military exercises taking place in the Baltic. There's about 10,000 soldiers from 12 countries that are taking place today. And there's about 3,500 servicemen from foreign countries, mostly the United States. Finland is the only non-NATO member to participate in the exercises. And the drill will also see a delivery of soldiers, equipment, and weapons to the Baltic states. And these exercises are going to come to an end by June 13th. But we know once they have these drills, the equipment always stays in this area. They don't remove it afterwards. Why? This is what they use to move military assets and troops into position. Now, out in Libya, we see there was a problem where we had this refugee ship which capsized. People were hurt, injured, some people died. And the British government, they're preparing to send the Royal Navy warship to the coast of Libya. Now, this new British deployment is going to be part of Operation Sophia, and this is an EU mission that currently only operates in international waters. Now, you have to remember, we have a lot, not the United States, but the coalition forces, the private Western Central Bank forces, have a lot of ships in this area because of the refugee problem. Right now, Britain has 4 British ships already there. NATO has ships. U.S. is going to be bringing in ships. And we see a lot of other countries bringing in ships to help with this situation. Now, do you really think they're bringing in all these warships to help out with the refugee crisis? I mean, the UK already has 4 ships there. NATO already has ships there. And not one of them could help this ship? Think about it. How are they really helping them? They're not. This is an illusion. They're bringing these ships in for a naval blockade of Libya because they're preparing to go into Libya. And it looks like that time period is getting closer and closer. Now, out in Syria, we see the Syrian armed forces, the Russian government, they dropped 32 tons of humanitarian aid to Deir ez-Zor. The aid delivery was conducted by the Syrian Air Force with the massive airplane winged by 2 Russian Su-30 fighter planes for safety precautions. And what they dropped off was food, medicine, fuel, and other necessities of life for the people there because, as we know, people are suffering in Syria. What's happening now in Syria is that the Islamic State and other terrorist groups, they are making a move on Aleppo, and they have trapped about 100,000 people between Aleppo and the border of Turkey. Now, we can see what's happening at this point. It looks like the terrorist groups were instructed to create this area where they're going to trap the people of Syria in a certain location. And this is a setup to create this safe zone. And they've been building on this over time because they're trying to wear everyone down, They need to continually do this to show that, yes, we need this area. And look, there's 100,000 people between Aleppo and the border of Turkey. We should just make this a complete safe zone where they can stay. And we can see how they're trying to manipulate this completely. Russia, once again, has increased their strikes. They're blocking the oil transport, the routes that are going to Turkey. They're destroying all of the convoys once again. And we see that during this ceasefire period of time, all the terrorist groups are receiving weapons, military assets from Turkey. And they're coming in daily. So when the U.S. is out there saying that we're not supplying the terrorists, yeah, they are. They're doing it through Turkey. And they're keeping the supply routes open, the corridor open, and all the military assets are flowing through right into the hands of Al-Qaeda, right into the hands of al-Nusra. And these groups are arming up right now and getting ready for whatever they have prepared for them. Now, we know the U.S. government, central bankers are out there and they continually tell us there are no boots on the ground, we don't have soldiers on the front lines in Syria. Well, that seems to be all false. It looks like they lied to us once again, because we see photographs from the agency France Press where they have U.S. Special Operation Forces in a rural village 40 miles from Raqqa, and it looks like they're right on the front lines, even though Obama and his administration, like John Kirby, continually tell us that, no, we don't have any boots on the ground, and boots on the ground really doesn't mean boots on the ground. Well, they're basically backpedaling, they're lying, and we see the proof. We see the troops that are there. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's probably a lot more troops than they're even telling us that are there. Because you have to remember, the U.S. troops are intertwined with these terrorist organizations to keep them organized, to keep them moving along, and to keep them fighting, because they do need a leader. All these other leaders that they tell us about, oh, they killed this person, they killed that, those aren't the true leaders of these terrorist groups. The U.S., the coalition forces, the soldiers in there, they're the true leaders of these groups. Now, Turkey is very angry because the U.S. is working with the Kurdish forces, and we know why this is happening. Because what they're trying to do on both ends here is to say we have a refugee crisis where refugees are trapped, we need a safe zone. The U.S. is working with the Kurdish forces, saying the Kurdish people want autonomy. They want a completely separate zone and break it off. And Turkey is out there just to make it look like this is real. This whole thing is a show for the rest of the world. And what they're doing is they're pushing the idea from two different angles. Now, Russia is blaming the U.S. for escalating the conflict in Syria because they say al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, they're all being armed by Turkey, which leads back to Washington. And by doing this, they're not helping the situation. Well, the U.S. doesn't want to help the situation. Their goal is to remove Assad, or their new goal is to try to push war, because they know the economy is collapsing and it's coming fast. Now, there was information out there that Syria's new constitution is going to be written up by Russia. Now, Syria is out there, Assad, his administration is out there saying this is completely false, fake, phony, everything else, fake, phony, and false. The new constitution is going to be written by the people of Syria. It's going to go through a referendum, and it's whatever the people want. Now, the U.S. does not want this to happen because already we see they already had elections and Assad's party was voted in once again. It's actually gotten larger. And if they had a vote right now of who they want to be president, it's going to be Assad. They've been liberating towns. He looks like a war hero. He's cooperating with Russia, and they're beating the terrorists. And the people are very happy about this. Now, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it's even a month at this point, we understand that the Bangladesh bank was hit. A lot of Asian banks were hacked into, and they didn't know who was doing this. But don't worry. The U.S. is out there saying we know who it is. It's North Korea. because the attacks on the banks resemble attacks on the South Korean networks and the 2014 Sony attack. Of course, they just used that as propaganda. They had no idea if it was North Korea. You cannot track down a cyber attack. It is very, very difficult. These advanced actors, they don't attack from their country. They bounce it around. And it is very, very hard to track down. Actually, if you can track down all this stuff, we would not be getting spam. It would be very easy to close things down. But we can see at this point, this is all propaganda. And they're trying to convince us. The reason why they're doing this is because North Korea right now is strapped for cash. And they need a way to replenish, their funds. And this is why they're going out and hacking these banks. Remember what that former general said, where they're preparing for something. They're getting ready for something. They're creating this illusion that North Korea is having problems. They might have a regime change because things are deteriorating very quickly. And we need to watch this situation very, very carefully. And they're also using this to show that North Korea could hit the financial institutions of the United States or throughout Europe and bring down the economy. So this is something we need to watch. Now, out in Tampa, Florida, the United States Special Operation Forces, they descended from buildings, jumped from Black Hawk helicopters, they fired shots, and they did all this during the daylight hours. And this was a 30-minute drill with the Special Armed Forces, and intertwined in this were Navy SEALs, Army Green Beret, Marine Raiders, plus members from 15 other nations, including Ireland, Jordan, many in makeup and disguises. They were carrying Kalashnikovs, they had gunshot wounds. They made it look very, very real. Now, normally they do this at night, but we can see they're switching to the daylight hours. And all of this is to condition the American people. Condition them to accept that this is what's going to happen. When we have this event, when we have this terror attack, you will be used to the armed forces coming into the country. This will not be a surprise. This will be normal, everyday operation. When things get out of hand in this country, you'll be used to the armed forces coming into the country and taking control. We can see at this point they are continually conditioning the American people for what is about to happen. And now they switch to the daylight hours. Because as we move forward, as the economy continually collapses, things are really going to escalate. And we know we have events coming. We know there's going to be a false flag. We know it has to be horrific. It has to be gigantic. And we can see they're preparing and prepping and training for this event so everything goes smoothly. We saw this during 9/11 when they had FEMA and everything already there, ready to go. We know they do this in months in advance when they train for these type of operations, because once they have the false flag, everything has to go as planned. Remember, this is not real terrorists. This is an inside job, and this is exactly what we're going to see. Now, Obama was out in Japan. He was visiting the area where we dropped our nuclear weapons, and he said something very interesting to the audience. And the audience included survivors of the attack. And he said the horror of America's nuclear attack should encourage countries to reconsider the use of the weapons. That is a future we can choose, and that's coming from Obama. And while he was telling the Japanese audience all of this, we have to remember that he spent almost $1 trillion in upgrading nuclear weapons. He stationed missiles right on the border with Russia. Obama has stationed U.S. nuclear-armed weapons approximately very close to China. We also have to realize, and this is coming from a new census of the American nuclear arsenal, that shows that Obama dismantled its smallest number of warheads since taking office. The new figures released by the Pentagon also highlight a trend that the current administration has reduced the nuclear stockpile less than any other post-Cold War president. Still, the new figures and private analysis underscored the striking gap between Obama's soaring vision of a world without nuclear arms, which he laid out during his first months of his presidency. So what he told us once again is a complete lie. Because what are they getting ready for? They're getting ready for war. And most likely, it will go nuclear. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.